Welcome to the Acknowledgment of Paternity training from the Center for Health Statistics. Today's agenda will be an Acknowledgment of Paternity overview, choosing the right form, checking the AOP form for accuracy and submitting it to the state, and paternity establishment percentage. Our first topic is an overview of paternity acknowledgement and legally recognizing the biological parent when the mother is unmarried. We know there are different abbreviations across different facilities. Some places will refer to this voluntary acknowledgement of paternity as the VOP. Some call it a VAP. Here at the state office, we refer to them as AOPs. And for this presentation, that's how acknowledgments of paternity will be referred to. ORS 432.093 guides us on the responsibilities of healthcare facilities and parents. When you have reason to believe the expectant mother is unmarried, you must provide the acknowledgment of paternity form and submit it along with the report of live birth. The biological parents are responsible for ensuring that the form is accurately completed. However, just because parents are responsible for the information, you are an important advocate for the timely and accurate submission of the acknowledgement of paternity form. The AOP form is a very important legal document that becomes part of the child's permanent birth record. It's the legal agreement between the mother and the father that the child is actually his biological child. If the information on the birth record does not match what the biological father has written on the AOP, the paternity will be rejected as the father did not sign off, witness, enter, or approve the information entered into the onto the birth parent worksheet. The birth worksheet is a great document used to obtain the information and statistics for the child's birth, including parental attributes. The AOP gives the parents the opportunity to verify what goes on the birth record for the father. We collect the attributes data that is listed on the worksheet for statistical purposes. However, the father's identity information, like his name, date of birth, and place of birth, all must come from the AOP as written by the biological father. This is a legal document. Once filed, it's part of the permanent birth record. What is entered into OVERS becomes registered, and what is reflected on the birth certificate that's issued from the state. Why are AOPs so important? AOPs add a biological father to a birth record, making the child eligible for benefits from both parents. Parents are able to claim that child on their taxes. The father can travel with the child out of state or out of the country without the mother being present. The child will be able to be put on the father's health insurance. And there are instances where a mother has to remain in the hospital. Having the father put on the record allows the father to take the child home on his own, and the father has rights that he would not have if he were not listed on the birth record. Paternity information is captured both on the parent worksheet by the parents and by the birth information specialist using OVERS. On the birth worksheet, if the marital status is no, not married, this is your cue to give the parents the acknowledgement of paternity form. After they've filled out this form and their signatures have been witnessed, you would select yes, that the acknowledgement has been signed in the hospital. The marital status on the worksheet. So the wording in this section can be a little confusing. What this section is essentially saying is that only if the parents are married should the father's information below be entered as is into the OVERS system. If the parents have signed an acknowledgement of paternity, the father's information should be entered exactly as it appears on the AOP form. If the mother is married but does not want to have a father listed, you would still mark her marital status as married, but not enter in the father's name into OVERS. Let's talk about the best practices when it comes to acknowledgments of paternity. First, it's up to you to determine if an AOP should be offered. If the mother is not married to anyone, offer the parents an acknowledgment of paternity form. You can print the acknowledgment of paternity form, which is the 45-31, from the print forms link in the other links section. You can also order those forms on our website. Next, ensure that parents have heard the rights and responsibilities before completing the form. They can read it to each other because it's on the back of the AOP form, or they can listen to and watch a YouTube video, which is in English or in Spanish, and the link to those YouTube videos is available on our website. The next thing is to check the form for accuracy and completeness before submitting it to the state. It's surprising how many forms are submitted without signatures, dates, or errors that have not been initialed. So we will go over AOP rejections in just a moment and talk about those in more detail. And then lastly, submit the form to the state in a timely fashion. Don't wait and send the form in batches. Prolonging submitting these forms can actually cause financial hardships to parents who are waiting to order their child's birth certificate. So, when should you offer the AOP form? According to law, ORS 432.088, if the mother is not married at the time of either conception or live birth or within 300 days before the live birth, the father will not be listed on the record unless an acknowledgement of paternity is signed by the mother and the father and then filed with the state registrar. There are some unusual situations or questions that may come about when you are dealing with acknowledgments of paternity. And the first one is a surrogacy situation. So if the mother is unmarried, then the biological father can be added to the record by completing the acknowledgment of paternity. However, adding the biological father using an AOP may actually slow the process down if adoption paperwork with the father's information has been submitted by an attorney. So it's important to let your parents know that if they are in a surrogate situation, they may want to wait for the adoption process, as that generally is a quicker option. Another thing is whether or not ID is required for the father to fill out the acknowledgement of paternity. And no ID is required to fill out the hospital version of the acknowledgement of paternity form. And then another question we get quite often is unmarried same-sex partners about whether or not they can complete an AOP, and they cannot do an AOP. An acknowledgement of paternity is only for the biological father to be added to the record. Married same-sex partners can be added to the birth record, but if the parents are unmarried, then they would have to go through a legal process in order to add that second parent to the birth record. Choosing the right form. So there are actually two acknowledgement of paternity forms, Form 45-31 and Form 45-21. So let's take a look at what the differences are between those forms. If the birth occurred in your facility, use the AOP 45-31, which is the hospital form, when the parents are signing at the hospital or birth facility while the mother is still a patient. It must be signed and dated within 5 days after the date of birth, otherwise it will be rejected. On this form, the hospital staff must witness the signing. Send the parents home with the affidavit 45-21 if they leave the hospital or birthing facility without signing the form. Remember, this form is to be used if they are discharged even before the 5-day time limit if they have not signed the hospital AOP. They will need to fill out this affidavit and have their signatures witnessed by a notary. Before the parents leave, make sure that the biological father's name, date of birth, social security number, and place of birth in overs match what was written on the acknowledgement of paternity. That the dates are handwritten as well as the names, and that the date signed and the date witnessed match for each parent, and that all 4 signature and date fields have something entered into them. In addition, on the AOP form, only minor alterations are allowed. If you need to make alterations, they must be initialed by the person making the change. The hospital or birth information specialist cannot make that change. All fields on the form must be completed. However, NA is acceptable when the field doesn't apply. And it's very helpful to include the OVER's case ID number on the acknowledgement of paternity. That helps team members at the Center for Health Statistics match up the acknowledgement of paternity with the birth record. Submitting the AOP form to the state. The form should be submitted as soon as possible. We ask that you don't hold on to those and mail them in batches. Use the white prepaid envelopes. The white envelopes are specific to paternity, and you can order those from the state. And the form must be mailed to the facility and postmarked within 14 days of the child's birth. What happens if paternity forms are late? The record will have the father's information removed, and the record gets registered without a father listed. If the father's name is removed because the document was not received, the parents must fill out and submit additional forms and fees. These can and will result in angry phone calls to the state and to the birthing facility. Oftentimes, parents have no idea that the state never received their form, and it can be a few years before they're aware of this fact. At that point, they've already paid many fees and may have been denied benefits because forms were held onto for too long at a facility. The most common reasons for rejection by the state are when parents or witness signatures are not dated, when parents or witness signatures are missing, or when there are cross-outs and alterations that are not initialed. Now I've got some example acknowledgments of paternity. So take a look at these and figure out if you would approve or reject this particular AOP. Now, can you spot the error? Sometimes these are still tough for us to spot. On this one, the dad's date and dad's witness date don't match. Would you approve or reject this AOP? Now on this AOP, we still would not be able to accept the form. It would be rejected because there's an obvious correction on the dad's date and there's no initial next to it. So remember, any minor corrections need to be lined through, rewritten, and initialed. The error on this one is a little easier to spot. The father's signature is missing. Remember, we can't accept an AOP with any blank information. So what happens if the AOP is rejected? We will register the record without the father. Then we'll send a rejection letter and an acknowledgement of paternity affidavit out to the parents. Then the parents will have 30 days to fill out the form and have it notarized. And we'll process that form with no fee if it's received by the deadline. After the 30 days, the parents are responsible for paying the amendment fee, and that fee is $35. Now, parents may forget to follow up, and parents may discover that the father is not listed at difficult and challenging times, such as if the father has passed away. And in that case, the family must go through the legal system and get a court order to add the father. Let's talk about some common challenges or situations that may occur when it comes to completing the Acknowledgement of Paternity form. So first of all, what happens if the father or parent couldn't get to the facility in time to sign the AOP before the mother was discharged? In that case, you would provide the 45-21 affidavit form, and notarized signatures on that form will be required. Another thing that comes up is when the mother's married, but she's not married to the biological father. Now, acknowledgments of paternity are for mothers who are not married at all. So you couldn't provide an AOP to add the biological dad in this case. However, there is a court process or a legal process that the parents could go through to add the biological father. Next is, what if a parent wants to withdraw paternity? So either parent may obtain and have notarized a rescind of paternity form. These forms are found on our website, and the Center for Health Statistics Vital Records website is found by Googling Oregon Vital Records, and it's the first link that comes up. Next, what happens if a child's being transferred to a different facility? So if the child and the mother are still under that 5-day period to have the form signed, then they can sign at the second facility. So the second facility would forward the documents, whether it's the acknowledgement of paternity or the birth parent worksheet. They forward those documents to the first facility because the facility where the child is born is the one that's responsible for reporting the birth, and you would need the acknowledgement of paternity for the father's information to enter into OVERS. And lastly, if you're with a parent and you have a question, what you can do is email the amendments team at chs.amendments@oha.oregon.gov or call their phone number and they will assist you. Now, when you call their phone number, you will need to leave a message and then they will get back to you. What is PEP? It's the Paternity Establishment Percentage. The state of Oregon is required to meet the goal of 90% of paternities for unmarried mothers established each year. These years run from October 1st through September 30th. And the facility acknowledgement of paternity goal is 80%. And by meeting 80% of that goal, the state will meet that required 90% overall. And it's just a way for the federal government to measure established paternities. And by meeting this goal, it ensures that the Division of Child Support and the TAMF program, which stands for Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, will get their funding. And it's Oregon's way of providing assistance when families need it most. Both the TAMF program and the Division of Child Support are programs designed to help kids. By making sure we meet our PEP percentage requirements, you as birth information specialists and the state of Oregon ensure funding for these programs. Paternities established at the hospital with the 45-31 AOP form are the most important part of the paternity establishment percentage. From October 1st, 2023 through September 30th of 2024, we barely made our goal at 90.99%. Your participation is essential so that these programs get the funding they need. Oregon needs facility acknowledgments of paternity to be above 80% for births to unmarried mothers, as mentioned on the prior slide. Achieving this percentage is vitally important so we can be confident that we can continue to meet the federal requirement. Birth information specialists, midwives, and labor and delivery staff are instrumental in ensuring that the state of Oregon fulfills the paternity establishment percentage. Every form sent in makes a difference in meeting this requirement. Anywhere else in life, a typo is often not a big deal. There's always autocorrect and spell check. This is why it's so important that the information being entered into OVERS is done carefully, including what's on the acknowledgement of paternity. Michael with an EA instead of Michael with an AE could mean time taken off work, money spent, and weeks of processing time just to correct a simple little typo. Forgetting or adding in something as simple as a hyphen can cause a mountain of paperwork for parents to correct. That's how important that you are to the creation of the birth record for every child you enter in. Even we as state government employees do not have the power or authority to correct anything that you've entered without legal documents obtained by the parents. Did you know that when you enter information into OVERS and certify, your name goes on the child's birth record? You may never see this child again, but you become part of their life and history forever. The birth certificate that's showing here is from 1913. You can see the blown up section shows the certifier's name, Mrs. Appleby. She now lives on in history as the nurse that certified the information on Ralph's birth certificate. You are forever a part of history. Just think of each record as your own personal work of art. You are the artist signing your name to the masterpiece, and your name is part of their identity and carried with them throughout their whole life. Even though you may not get to see your name on the finished masterpiece, future generations will, genealogists will, and the descendants from that child will too. Your masterpiece is so unique and permanent. Here are a few of our online resources for future reference. On the Birth Information Specialist page of our website, you'll find paternity information, including a frequently asked questions, helpful hints for completing the AOP forms, and a QR code to link to the Statement of Rights and Responsibilities. Paternity forms and instructions takes you to our website where you can access forms, instructions, and contacts. And your facility can order more forms from the Order Form link. The Division of Child Support link takes you to locations of offices around the state. Parents can use these offices for notary services as well as assistance in getting the notarized form submitted. In some cases, they'll even pay the fees. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Kathy Ellis, the Vital Records Trainer, our Partner Services team, or the Amendments team. Thank you for listening to the presentation on Acknowledgments of Paternity.